Welcome back, dear audience, to Fandom Fridays, where we're once again doing this sequel. We're going to do more of The Seal of Silent Hill. Enjoy. The Seal of Silent Hill by Crimson One, Chapter 9. Sam. Being afraid was very different from being so damn petrified that Sam could barely imagine lifting his shotgun the next time something homicidal came at them. This was so out of their normal realm. Not that anything about their lives ever followed a sense of order, but this town, everything about this place was so different from anything they had ever faced before. There seemed to be no laws, no way of catching a break, and no place they could be safe. When Dean backed into the apartment building, muttering something about the streets melting, Sam figured he had heard his brother wrong. But whatever was happening outside, brought on by the sound of that siren, it was not leaving them untouched inside where they had taken refuge. The walls around them were melting too. No, Sam thought. It wasn't really like melting, so much as being stripped away to a barer, burnt base underneath, as if their surroundings were shedding off a guise of almost normal, finally revealing the hell at its core. As the apartment building burnt up around them, despite the lack of fire, definitely burnt, because Sam could smell the ash and sulfur so much stronger than before. Sam, Dean, Castiel, and Jonah huddling close together in the entryway, fearing that they would not likewise be stripped away. "Gotta find a place to hide," Jonah said with a shaky voice. "The monsters are gonna get worse when that siren goes off." "What do you mean? What the hell is happening?" Dean gritted out for what he felt like was the dozenth time. Finally, Castiel broke the walls around them, settled, leaving them in a different world than the one they had entered. "It's the other world," the angel said. "Unstable, dangerous. We cannot maintain a hold here, but when it surfaces, the connection to hell completes itself, allowing the creatures and damned souls here trapped free again. We must wait it out. We cannot continue while the world remains like this." "Hide, like I said. For how long?" Dean pressed. All of them still turned outward with their backs together, watching the darkness around them, as if at any moment one of those creatures would come out of the shadows to snatch them up. "We don't know what Lilith's doing. She's already close to breaking the seal. Nothing! We don't have time to sit on our heads and hide." "But, Dean—" "Who's Lilith?" Jonah cut in. "Well, how the hell do you know so much anyway?" He turned to Castiel. The siren was still sounding in the distance, but the change into this other world was now complete, the entryway looking black, red, and tattered. The four of them turned to face each other, and Sam took the burden of speaking to Jonah. "This isn't the time to explain everything," he said. "You just have to trust us. We're trying to figure this out. We might be able to stop it. Then all of us can get out of here, okay?" Jonah was clearly not the type of person to usually go along with a stranger was telling him. But this was not a normal situation either, not by any stretch. The mechanic hesitated, but eventually nodded his acquiescence. He had already admitted that being with the others put him more at ease, especially when those others had weapons. Sam was thankful for that too. He held his shotgun tight to him, taking the time to reload. Dean did the same. It was unnerving how distraught Cass looked right now. How in his head, his own world, like he was too terrified and too troubled to focus on the world they were in. Sam could understand that, but seeing an angel looking so hopeless did not do anything to improve Sam's mood. It also couldn't quite shake how much Jonah looked and reminded him of his dad. A mechanic, with such familiar features and coloring. Sam knew Dean had noticed too. Dean wasn't very good at hiding that kind of shock, as much as he managed to mask it afterwards. But Sam was trying his damnedest not to think about it. The similarities they supposedly had with the other people stranded here. Sam didn't like where this might lead, what the true tie-in might be, because he knew it wouldn't be anything good. It was too quiet inside the apartment building, even with the siren outside, with the only sound of shells being loaded echoing around them. Down into the hallway ahead that was nothing but a black abyss. It was so dark here, almost worse than being out in the ass. After Sam finished reloading his gun, He took out his flashlight. Damn it! Dean cursed suddenly, patting down his pockets, still jacketless. What? Sam whispered to him. Dean's eyes looked in the dark in the shadows, only the barest light glaring off the color green. Aaron had the bag with all the supplies we grabbed at the gas station. Don't have the other flashlight, matches, food, nothing. Wonderful. Well, I still have this one. Sam indicated his flashlight as he flicked it on and made a quick sweep over the entryway. Everything looked abandoned and rotten in this other world. I threw some matches in my pocket. No food, though, or water. We'll have to rely on this for light, and your cell phone and Jonah's radio to tell us if more creatures are around. Can I have that? Jonah asked Dean, pointing at the bat strapped to Dean's back with a rope. I understand you boys not wanting to give up guns, but I would like to be armed, if I can be. Dean didn't hesitate. Just slipped the bat free and handed it to the man. Guess? Sam tried not to laugh at the thought of offering Castiel a weapon. It was just so hard imagining him using a gun. I know you might be able to, handle yourself fine, Dean said, meaning the possibility of Cass banishing those creatures by touching them. But if you want something, my ankle blade, a handgun. It took a moment for Castiel to even look up, as though he had been deep in thought or listening carefully for something. His head tilted Dean's direction. I would be more comfortable with the blade, he said. Like he had done with the bat, Dean unhooked his ankle blade from the sheath on his leg and handed it to Castiel without question. It was even quieter now. Sam began to notice. You could say it was silent on a hill. Trixie is disappointed. Sorry. There's dull creaks and groans of the building, like maybe something was lurking right around the corner, but they couldn't see it. Sam hadn't noticed at first, but Dean's phone and Joe's radio were both humming lightly under the current of silence. While the others whispered about where they might hide, or how far they should dare to venture, they went on. Sam went around the lobby's desk. It was old-fashioned looking, not like a modern apartment complex, but almost more like a hotel, having the office right there in front instead of a separate building. There was an office door behind the desk, but when Sam checked the knob, it was locked. Looking over the contents of the desk, there was nothing of interest, just some burnt paper Sam couldn't read, dark smudges on the wood. Sam turned to the hall behind him and flashed the light on what appeared to be a map of the building, displaying the layout of the grounds and all of the rooms. The Blue Creek Apartments seemed to be connected to the apartment building next door, Woodside. Sam set his shotgun down on the desk for a moment, so he could retrieve the map from the wall. It might come in handy. Sammy, let's go, Dean called over to him, having apparently won the argument to at least keep moving for a while. Even if it's hard to hide, one of these rooms has to be better than staying right by the front door. Well, it's all close together, so get over here with that flashlight, okay? Damn. Dean could really be bossy when he wanted to be. Sam smirked to himself. But he knew it was just years of take care of Sammy, conditioning Dean wanted to take the lead. Usually, Sam pretended he didn't mind, at least at first, as long as they weren't fighting at the time. But Sam didn't want his brother to be playing hero in a place where both of them could easily end up dead. He moved to join Dean and the others again, but wasn't about to give up the flashlight. I found a map, he told him. I think we should try heading for... Sam cut off as the hum for the phone and the radio began to grow louder, crackling with static. All four of them froze in place, varied colored eyes growing wide in the dark. There had to be something down the hallway. Sam was closest to the opening, standing at the edge of the desk, his shotgun still lying on top of it instead of being in his hands. Sammy, don't move. Well trained or not, curiosity got the better of Sam, and he turned his head slowly to the left, shifting light into the shadows. There wasn't anything there. Maybe in the office behind me, or in one of the rooms, Sam suggested quietly, since his light went fairly down the hallway, but wasn't illuminating anything other than the wall and floor. Right then, Sam should have reached for his gun, should have reclaimed it before doing anything else. He knew that in the back of his mind, but for whatever inane reason, he took a few steps away from the desk Instead, the bear shined his light down the hallway. What the flashlight did not help Sam see was the adjacent hallway to his left. The crackling of Dean's phone and Jonah's radio flared loudly as one of those shuffling acid-spare creatures slammed into Sam from the side, sending the flashlight across the floor. Sam lifted his arms defensively, trying to somehow grope for his handgun, while calling out to the others for aid. The thing didn't have any actual arms, twisted by flesh as it was, but merely lurched at Sam with all of its weight, battering against him. Sam crumbled under a particularly harsh blow and landed hard on his knees. There was a sudden crack of light and smoke. Dean had fired at the creature with a shotgun. Sam had tried to roll out of the way when he heard the thing fall, knowing it could still be very well capable of moving. Somehow, in the dark, Sam managed to flatten his back against the wall. He could dimly see the figure of Dean hovering over the fallen creature to shoot it at closer range. It still went underground, twisting only a moment more. But the radio static did not go silent like it should have. Sam's voice caught in his throat as he saw the hazy figure of another one of those damn monsters shuffling toward them further down the hall. "Dean!" someone called, though Sam wasn't sure if it had been Cass or Jonah, since his head was still spinning from being pummeled by body weight. All he saw was the swing of a bat, the glint of a knife, and he heard Dean grunt, swinging the butt of the shotgun for a sharp blow that brought the second creature down like the first. Sam felt a surge of nausea. Maybe from the concussion he probably sustained. Maybe from the smell of those disgusting things rotting right around him. But he breathed relief when his eyes adjusted to the dark. He could make out Dean crouching in front of him.
"Dude, you totally suck,"
Dean said, in true brother fashion.
"Went down like a freaking girl from just a couple of hits. Gonna need me to wipe your ass for you, too?"
As if Sam could feel any more like a goon right now. "Shut up," he grumbled, though it would be a bad idea to stand up just yet. "I think I'm going to throw up."
"Just aim away for the shoes, alright?"
Dean smirked. Well, Sam assumed Dean smirked, though he couldn't make out Dean's features as clearly as he would have liked.
"Jerk!"
Sam groaned. He knew Dean was preparing for his usual comeback to that nickname. Only Sam didn't quite hear it, since the door, not wall, he realized too late, he was leaning against suddenly gave way, and Sam fell back onto the rotted room flooring. Sam would have laughed, would have tried to, especially since Dean had totally freaked him out. Only it wasn't so funny when Sam heard the phone and radio surge with static again, and his eyes focused on the monster standing over him. It's just opened without warning, as Sam felt a distinct burn of acid pour onto his skin. Castiel had known panic before. It was not a new sensation. He had also known helplessness, but not quite in the same way he was feeling now. His face was shaken, and knowing there was little he could do to help, or to protect himself. He could only watch, horrified, his pulse, Timmy's pulse, still racing from helping Dean and Jonah kill the second creature, as a third creature appeared from the room behind Sam, spat acid onto the falling hunter's skin. Sam had already been disoriented, suffering from a concussion maybe, but he still instinctively raised his left arm to shield himself after the acid had landed on his jaw and neck. The remaining acid began eating away at his coat and shirt sleeve, still reaching him, still causing him such awful pain. Castiel's breath caught at the sound of Sam's screaming. Of course Dean was quick to act, always so quick to act when someone else was needed, especially his brother. He had yet to reload his shotgun, but used it once again as a club, slamming the butt of the weapon up into the creature's chin and sending toppling backwards into the room. Dean shouted back at Cass, then turned to Sam as he leapt over his brother to finish off the creature, thinking nothing of his own safety. Castiel remained frozen at first, but only for a moment. He dropped to his knees beside Sam and began hastily removing him of his jacket. It was immediately clear that the acid had already started eating through Sam's shirt, so Castiel tugged and tore at Sam's flannel until there was only the t-shirt beneath. Sam was no longer screaming, but was gasping from the pain, staring wide-eyed at Castiel for help. "Help me!" There was no time to be sure whether or not Dean had killed the creature. Castiel hauled Sam to his feet. At least he had more strength than Jimmy's body alone, and hefted Sam into the bathroom inside the apartment. The door was open, a sink in direct line of sight. Amazingly, actual water gurgled and finally poured from the faucet once Castiel flipped on the taps. He quickly splashed water over the wounds on Sam's arm, along his neck and chin that were still losing flesh as the acid ate into him. The water would neutralize it, at least stop the spread, but it would not undo the damage already done that was making Sam shake and go into shock.
Sam!
Dean called from outside the bathroom, leaning on the door frame and looking in at Sam and Castiel stricken. Jonah remained at a loss behind Dean, practically catatonic in his own state of shock. Castiel had tried to stay calm. It was the expected of him. He would not give away the truths he knew by panicking and crumbling. Somehow, he had to bring them through this. I may be able to heal some of it, Castiel told Dean. It was getting harder to hold Sam up. There was no way to know how deeply the acid had gone. But Castiel had to try. He leaned Sam back against the bathroom wall, placed one hand over the wounds on Sam's neck and one on his arm, and he prayed he had enough of his true self left to do this. It was far easier to heal Sam than Castiel expected. Sam gasped like a drowning victim, taking their first breath out of water, his eyes clearing and focusing, though he did not stop shaking. When Castiel pulled his hands away, there was not smooth skin left behind, but the wounds were healed enough to leave only the surface still smarred that would no doubt scar over time.
Here, Sammy. Hold on.
Dean came into the bathroom, holding a rag he must have gotten for Jonah. It was only a little dirty, and would suffice for now. Dean wrapped it carefully around Sam's arm with practiced hands that treated many wounds on that same skin. Castiel could easily picture a younger Dean treating his child Sam as he watched him. Shit, Sam stuttered, willing himself to not go into shock like he had been about to, but to remain alert, ready to fight if they needed him. There wasn't anything to put over the wounds on his neck, not even a simple bandage.
No big deal, right?
Dean mustered a smirk, patting his shoulder further for Sam's injuries.
It's just skin. It'll go back.
Sam huffed a shaky laugh. They really were remarkable men, these whinchesters.
Thanks, Cass.
Dean glanced at Castiel, a brief glimmer of heartfelt gratitude shining there before Dean maxed himself again. The three of them were crammed into the tiny bathroom, crowding the sink. Sam needed to rest, clear his head, or better yet, find something to treat his wounds more properly than Castiel's meager healing could offer. While the healing had come easily, Castiel could not bypass the powers of this place completely. Not as he was. Jonah stood in the doorway, Dean's bloody in his hands.
We can't stay here, he said. Gotta keep moving. More of those monsters might bound be coming. This ain't exactly the best hiding place.
Maggie. His eyes went glassy. My wife. She'll be wondering where I am. We got 2 boys. Castiel did not have to see Sam and Dean's faces clearly in the dark to know that the brothers were shaken to hear of the further similarities Jonah had with her father. Castiel had noticed too. He wished he could see the truth of Jonah's soul, see what connection was between Sam, Dean, and the others here. But all he could see was shadow, something darkening this man that had yet to be revealed. Jonah was not a bad man, not evil, but there was something there, blackening him at his edges. Slowly, Dean helped Sam out of the bathroom, and Castiel followed. It was quiet, still so very dark. Dimly, Castiel could hear the siren continuing to blare outside. Their eyes were starting to adjust, but somehow that was not enough for them to see well in this place. The apartment they entered was small, unremarkable, black, and smudged like everything else in the world. Then, of course, there was the blessed body of the third creature. Castiel shivered, feeling the hairs on Jimmy's arm stand on end.
Grab Sam's flashlight from the hallway there, Jonah.
Dean gestured to the faint light coming from the outside door.
I'll probably just lure more of those things towards us. We'll regroup a minute before moving on. We should get Sam's shotgun too when we go, and we'll grab that together. Don't want anyone going too far off on their own.
Jonah retrieved the flashlight without incident and closed the door behind him when he came back inside. They were down one weapon, injured, tired, and this was their only first time in the other world. Castiel knew little about it, but enough to fear it more than he had dared fear diving into the perdition to rescue Dean's soul. This was a different kind of hell. Castiel shivered again, cursing himself as he did so. It wasn't cold. He actually felt very warm, not used to experiencing the extremes of mortal life, but usually remaining balanced. There was sweat dampening his host's skins now, his pulse still racing, his hopes of maintaining calm for Sam and Dean's sake dwindling.
"Sorry to party, Cass."
Dean's voice broke into Castiel's thoughts. The elder hunter having forced Sam to sit down while he reloaded, with Jonah peering out the window. Castiel did not understand what Dean meant at first, but when he got the gist, when Dean tugged at his own shirt, all of them were down to one eager layer of clothing, while Castiel was still wearing three.
"Lose the trench coat and suit coat, man. They'll just get in the way," Dean said. "You could probably lose the tie, too."
He reached up from where he was sitting, next to Sam on the remains of a burnt-out couch, and he yanked lightly on the end of Castiel's dark blue tie. Okay, all you fangirls can just sit back, relax, and start dreaming about Dean stripping Cass all you want. Starting now, I'll give you about 5 seconds. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Bum da There. You yaoi fangirls satisfied? You have your DSCL moments? Good. Personally, if I were to choose a portrait of the moon, I would prefer to say scene than DCL, but that's just me. Moving on. Jimmy's tie. Jimmy. Castiel was barely more than just Jimmy now, save having memories of being something greater. He felt more human by the moment as he took Dean's advice, letting his trench coat drop to the floor, undoing the buttons on his jacket and letting that drop too. Finally, he loosened his tie and pulled it free, tossing it into the pile of discarded clothing. Darn it, woman, I am trying to tell a really good Silent Hill story, and you are giving the fangirls who are probably listening in onto this more material of thinking of Castiel doing a striptease. The only way that this could possibly be worse is if you have Sam proceed to do a shower scene. Dean, I need to take a shower. Oi! He felt strangely naked in just his shirts and slacks. And then the fangirls go wild. So did the fanboys, too.
"You're hopeless."
Dean stood with his reloaded shotgun, propped on his shoulder, shaking his head as he came up to Castiel and flicked open the bottom of Jimmy's white shirt.
"You could just summon all that back once we're out here, right?"
Yes, Castiel said, though it was actually a bit more complicated than summoning.
"So don't worry about it."
Dean shrugged. He then turned back to Sam, Jonah, and the window. It was eerie how no light was actually steaming in from outside.
"Okay, let's go. We'll grab Sammy's shotgun from the desk up front, then make our way down the main hallway."
There's... Sam grins, as if even simply talking stung more than he could bear, which had to be true judging from the side of his neck.
"The map. Another building connects to this one,"
he finished, pulling out the map he had taken from the lobby. Dean walked back to his brother to look at it. Part of Castiel wanted to stay right where they were, wanted to cower. An angel wanted to cower. The thought made Castiel so angry with himself. He was not helpless. He was not helpless. Sam and Dean were the helpless ones. So much more right now than he could possibly understand. Castiel had to be strong for them.
"Hey!"
Jonah breathed shakily, so softly he might not have heard him if it wasn't so quiet. Castiel looked over. Sam and Dean did as well, only to see Jonah's face overcome with fear as he clung to the bat Dean had given him and stared out the window.
What the hell is that thing?"
Zona whispered. Dean moved immediately for the window. Sam followed gently, leaving Castiel last to walk across the room, peer over the others' shoulders into the night. By the time Castiel reached them, Sam and Dean looked just as disturbed and afraid as Jonah. Then Castiel, too, saw why. The creatures they had seen so far were child's play compared to what existed at the core of this place. Outside on the street, barely illuminated by anything but the glint of the blade being dragged heavily behind it, was some awful parody of a man. He was monstrously huge, with something like an executioner's shroud on his head being made of metal, but otherwise having only bloody cloth around his waist as he carried an impossible sword. The blade shrieked against the pavement as it was dragged behind him. Okay, I do sometimes share other people's problems with the overuse of Pyramid Head because, Pyramid Head really worked for James on Silent Hill 2. But this time, I think it could actually work for Sam and Dean. Especially Sam, considering, Sam's relationship with Jessica and the fact that every time Sam has been with a woman, they have died. And let's not also forget, on Dean's side, he also still wants very much a normal life. He secretly wants a stable relationship. So, using Pyramid Head like this could actually work. It doesn't have to be standard, well, this is Silent Hill, so we got to put in Pyramid Head. We have to. This actually feels a little bit natural. So no, I'm not going to use my Pokeball on this one. Oh, my Pokeball is what I use every time I read a Silent Hill fanfic, and Pyramid Head has been thrown in just for reasons of, well, it's Pyramid Head. I so far had to use this on both movies. There, by the window, the siren was louder. Castiel felt herself shivering again, shaking. Something about the figure below them was familiar. That only sickened Castiel's more. It was coming for them. He knew, but yet it would find them. Castiel would be doing anything to stop what happened after that. The siren was so loud in Castiel's ears, the glass of the window cracking from the force of it. The cracking glass was loud too. So loud. Too loud. Loud enough that the siren below with his ominous helmet must have heard it. He looked up to them, and looked up without eyes. And before Castiel could fill Jimmy's lungs with another shaky breath, the world around him grew darker and darker until there was nothing left but black. Dean woke up coughing, as if his lungs had been filled with smoke and ash as he slept. At first, he didn't remember where he was. Then, a flash of that thing he had seen outside raced across his mind, and he almost sat up straight up as he recalled the monstrous sight of him, with that pyramid-shaped helmet, and the blade so large it had to be dragged. Dean would have dismissed it as a nightmare if he had woken up on a dirty apartment floor inside the damned hill of Silent Hill. He knew that thing, that monster he had seen. He knew the presence of it. He knew exactly why it shook him, and made him feel close to retching. "Hey, Cass!" came a shout from Dean's left, which immediately alerted him, because he was the one anxiously crying out that name. Dean shot up properly and turned. He must have dropped right there by the window, but Castiel was spread out behind him. Jonah and Sam were trying to get the angel to stop convulsing. Sam wasn't in a much better state to be worrying over someone else, but that was a Winchester for you. "Sorry, Caius!" Jonah called again, only knowing the man in the button-down shirt by name, a name that sounded at least a little less angelic than Castiel. Dean took only a moment to notice that their surroundings had changed again, back to simply dinky and dark, not burnt and bloody, and so closely connected to hell, before he scrambled over to Castiel as well. The siren had stopped. "Cuss!" Dean spoke more quietly to Jonah, elbowing his way in past the mechanic. Castiel's eyes were clenched tight. He was practically seizing. "Come on, man. Snap out of it. The other world's gone. It's okay." The other world. Dean played the term over in his mind, even as he said it. It wasn't just some other world. It was hell. Truly, honestly, some part of hell. Dean knew that now. Finally, as if the sound of calling voices had just reached him, Castiel's eyes sprang open, wide and vibrant blue. His shaking began to subside, but remained just slightly, like a tremble beneath his skin. When his eyes focused, he turned and looked right at Dean.
What was that about, huh? Worrying us like that.
Dean half spat, half grinned at the angel.
You didn't see any of us throwing a fit, now did ya? Guess getting sent back into the normal world packs quite a punch.
Not that Dean was expecting otherwise, but it was a little disheartening that Castiel didn't even smile a little at his try for lightening the mood. Castiel looked scared, terrified, really. Then sympathetic, almost like he was pitying Dean. Castiel knew right at that moment. Castiel recognized something in the man with the pyramid head too.
You okay?
Dean asked more seriously, his grin dropping. Cass nodded. I'm not a natural part of this. The town does not want me, but will not let me go either. The shift's affected me more than the rest of you.
What's he going on about?
Jonah asked Sam. Smart kid that he was, Sam just shrugged. Then those hazel eyes turned urgently to Dean. They didn't have time for this. They had to move before the siren came back. At least in this version of Silent Hill, there are fewer creatures around the bend. We should go. Sam stated the obvious. Dean was still thinking about getting Sam's forgotten shotgun, making it to the other building Sam had mentioned that was apparently attached to this one. They had to stay safe, but they also had to find Lilith and wherever this shield was going to be broken. And that was going to take a little legwork. Of course, it would be nice if they could manage all of that without having to explain everything to Jonah. Dean took one of Cass's hands, while Jonah grabbed the other, and he lifted him to his feet. The angel swayed a little, like he might be nauseous, but nodded as if to say he could make it. It was far too human an expression, going all green like that. Dean wasn't sure if he liked it, or if it scared the unholy shit out of him.
Make sure you have everything.
Dean stepped up to take the lead again, especially with Sam injured and Cass all wibbly.
Let's get out of here.
The strange thing Dean noticed as he looked around the room was that the creature they had killed was no longer there, like it had been left on the other side, in the other world, and only a certain few creatures actually made it over to this side. Another thing Dean noticed, scanning one time with his flashlight, was a faint glimmer in the corner. There was so little light to see by. Dean knew it couldn't be a trick. It had to be the flashlight glancing onto something. He went to the corner and bent down, groping with his fingers until he discovered a thin metal chain with a pendant. It was silver, delicate. I hear the item pickup sound. What is it?
A locket,
Dean said, standing up together again and examining the necklace under the light. The others were already waiting for him by the door.
Pretty clean, too, considering how dusty and run down everything else looks. Says,
Dean squinted at the engraving on the front.
Yours forever. Huh. Can't get it open. Last tenant must have left it here. Or the town's last victim.
No. Cass spoke up, a thick graveness in his voice. Dean flashed his light over at the three men by the door. Castiel's face looking haunted. The town leaves clues for it to lead you where it wants. We must get the locket open. Okay. Dean really hated how they anthropomorphized this place. The town leaves clues. But then, it really was like a living thing.
Later.
Dean pocketed the necklace, heading swiftly to join the others.
We're getting out of here first. Come on.
Castiel looked ready to protest, but was too unsteady on his feet to put up much of a fight. Together, they left the apartment, watching carefully for the further creatures. Though it had definitely been eerie to find the body of the creature in the apartment gone, it was startling to find the ones in the hallway gone as well. The truly frightening thing, however, was that Sam's shotgun was missing too.
Doesn't make any sense,
Dean gritted out in the lobby, staring at an empty desk. Castiel dropped his knife, and John will drop the bat, but They were still here when we woke up, Sam said. You dropped your shotgun, Dean, but you still have it. Why would it matter that I set mine down? Part of Dean wanted to answer that too, but they had to get moving.
Don't waste brain cells on it, Sammy. This place ain't exactly played by fair rules. Let's just keep going. You got that map?
He asked, checking to make sure he was fully loaded now, that he had to cover the heavy artillery on his own. At least Sam still had a knife and pistol. The map pointed them down the long main hallway and to the left. It was straightly forward, bringing them up to a stairwell and to the third floor, where there was a fire exit to the other building. Blessedly, they didn't happen upon any monsters along the way. And darn it, this is my first playthrough. I can't access the chainsaw, the laser gun with unlimited ammo, nor can I access the freaking laser sword. Dang it! Curse it! Curses! If only I'd done my further playthrough. Well, the only thing I can hope now is to get the bad ending and hope that I can luck on something awesome. I'm afraid to find a bad ending. Dean considered checking more rooms, but it would take too much time. If he had heard anything from behind one of the doors, a sign that someone else was there, then he would need to check. But if not, then he had to get to the other building. Find something or someone that could actually help them figure out what they had to do. It didn't help that with every step he thought he heard something. A moan, creak, or shriek of metal. But every time he readied to fire at the creature he assumed was about to attack them, there was nothing there. This place was goading them, tricking them, making them second-guess themselves in the dark. He hated having so little control. He hated that Sam was hurt. It looked like he was wincing every time Dean glanced over. He hated that Castiel was practically leading into him as they moved along, needing support to stay upright. He hated that horrible thing he had seen dragging a giant sword outside. So different from the other creatures here. Reminded him so much of Dean, Sam said, jarring Dean from his thoughts. Dean looked over and saw that they had stopped in front of a door. Dean really needed to pay more attention. Stop getting lost up in his head. The map says the fire exit into the other building should be right through here.
Awesome!
Dean cleared his throat, shaking his head to clear his thoughts as well. He motioned for the others to get behind him so he could steady the shotgun. For all they knew, some awful, nasty was waiting on the other side of the door. Stunning it, Dean was pretty sure it swung outward. Perfect. Forgetting their unspoken agreement to be as quiet as possible, Dean reared back and kicked at the door jam as hard as he could. It busted open easily, but it opened up to empty space. Catching Dean so off guard, he started to tip forward. Shit! That free-falling feeling had Dean by the gut for all 2 seconds before he felt himself anchored by the hands grabbing onto both his arms. Sam and Cass had him. They pulled him back from where he had pitched dangerously. Maybe kicking the door down in this case instead of opening it had not been his best idea.
What the hell?
Dean gasped, staring sharply at Sam.
You said it was a fire exit!
It is! Sam defended. Then he peered up the floor, down 3 stories to the ground. Was. I think that's the fire escape part down on the ground there. But it's not that far down. And we can't be more than a yard from the other building. There was no door on the opposite side. This opened space into the other building where a door had once been. Probably gone the same way the fire escape walkway had been made gone. Sam was right, though. It wasn't all that far to jump, and 3 stories really wasn't that far down.
We'll just have to jump across then.
Trust me, we've had to do worse, Sam offered.
It's no problem. But you're hurt, Jonah protested. And Cass here could barely walk on his own.
Guy had a point.
I'll go first,
Dean volunteered, pretending his heart wasn't racing a little from having almost fallen through the floor. It wasn't as if he had jumped from buildings before, but that usually was without thinking, spur of the moment. If he had to stop and consider it, he always went back to his hold height and flying problem, and damn it!
I'll go first,
Dean said again.
Maybe there's something on the other side. Broken wood or something. Maybe the door from the other building. We could use it like a bridge. If not, at least I'll be on the other side to help everyone else across, okay?
Jonah, Sam, Castiel seemed satisfied enough with that. They all just looked so generally scared. Dean could tell that Sam especially wanted to protest about Dean going first, putting himself in harm's way, like he always did. But it was the smartest thing he could do. Dean handed his shotgun to Sam to make the jump easier, tossed his companions a devil-may-care grin like he wasn't freaked as they were, and turned to the open door. Just a quick little jump. Damn, Dean hated his life sometimes. What's this author's note? This is turning out to have more slassy undertones than I intended. Slassy undertones? This is supernatural. I'd be shocked if there wasn't any slassy undertones. Heck, I'd be shocked if there wasn't at least a few references to slassy undertones. Telling me that there's not any slassy undertones is like telling me that there's going to be no slassy undertones between Tara and Willow. Sam couldn't help but the way his heart hammered when Dean leapt from their building to the next. He knew how Dean felt about his heights. He'd only ever seen Dean freak out when they were but he knew better than to think that leaping a few yards over open air was an easy feat for his brother. Sam breathed a sigh of relief, only after Dean landed safely on the other side. Dean knew how to land properly when thrown, falling, or jumping. He rolled slightly, hitting a little hard on his knees, but not too badly. Sam watched as Dean gathered himself up. She had to make sure he hadn't lost any weapons in the jump, or started to look around the dark room. Here, Sam called across, tossing the flashlight after Dean. Dean caught it easily and flipped the light on. It was too narrow and opening through the door for Sam to see much of the room Dean was in. But Dean didn't look startled or horrified by anything the light was illuminating. Then Dean's face scrunched. What is it? Sam asked.
Don't know. Looks like some sort of mannequin on the bed over here. No monsters, though. This is another apartment. Why would the fire escape into someone else's apartment?
Dean turned back to the opening, flashing the light over at Sam, Cass, and Jonah.
Do not expect sense from the layout of this place,
Castiel said, in a voice that was at least a little stronger than it had been when he first stopped seizing.
The town changes to suit you. There are no concrete rules, only the certainty of death.
Sam turned to the angel beside him, who was currently leaning heavily against Jonah, as he had been leaning against Dean before. Castiel never looked happy, really, or optimistic, but to see such brokenness on an angel was enough to make Sam's pulse speed up in a hurry. Castiel noticed Sam's scrutiny, and seemed to jump back himself, out of that fatalistic mentality.
My apologies, the angel said. I should not be so negative.
Something about Castiel's formalities always made Sam want to smile. He touched a hand at Castiel's arm, looking to Jonah with resolve, too.
We're going to be all right. You were able to help me,
Cass. That's already something. Anything after those acidic creatures is going to be a piece of cake. Of course, Sam didn't mention that his wounds still throb, and he was speaking hushed more, because it hurt to speak at all than those creatures didn't overhear them.
Yeah, Cass.
Jonah joined in, adjusting Castiel against him so he could help the angel more easily.
The marks here on Sam barely looked like he got hit at all.
Sam smiled at Jonah for his help. The mechanic had been outside the bathroom when Castiel healed Sam, so he hadn't seen more than just a little water in the wounds was the reason Sam only had scars. Sam was thankful Jonah didn't have thought to question that. Explaining to Jonah that the guy he was currently helping stay upright was actually an angel would open a lot of doors they didn't have time to deal with right now. Turning back to Dean, Sam saw a concerned look haunting his brother's face. Dean didn't like giving false hope to people, figuring the truth was better because then nobody would have to be disappointed if things turned out wrong. Well, Sam couldn't think like that now. Things had been bad enough for them before they had even ended up in this town. Sam had to be optimistic about something.
There's nothing over here to use as a bridge between buildings, Dean said. You're all just going to have to jump, Cass. You go first. I'm going right here to catch you if you don't quite make it.
Dean set the flashlight and his weapons down on the floor, returning to the edge of the other building so he could grab onto Castiel. when the angel made his leap. It was strange, thinking that an angel needed to jump like the rest of them. Sam had always imagined angels having wings. According to Dean, Cass did have wings, but he couldn't use them normally when he was inside Jimmy, encased in human skin. There was always a sound of flapping whenever Castiel appeared or disappeared, but it must have been different somehow. Different enough that Cass actually looked a little scared at the prospect of. Sam took Castiel from Jonah, guiding the angel to the edge of the doorway. "Do you have enough strength for this?" Sam asked him. Castiel hesitated, but eventually nodded. "I should be able to jump. Landing, however."
"I got you, Cass,"
Dean called over supportively. At least one of them was still in perfect health. Sam was feeling a lot better himself, but since his wounds still stung, they were really distracting. "You'll be fine," Sam assured Castiel. Looking much more alert and steady than he had earlier, Castiel nodded again, clutched each side of the doorway, then reared back. He leapt easily across to the other side, where Dean helped steady the angel's landing. Sam couldn't help smiling at himself at how tightly Castiel clung to Dean before letting go with a bashful look. "Okay, Vic, if you keep this up, I'm going to bring out the Hoye meter. This Hoye meter will determine just how much slash material you're going to be getting." "Okay, Jonah, you're next." Sam gestured the mechanic forward.
"Wait, so you go first?"
Jonah protested.
"You're hurt too, remember? I can jump that distance just fine."
"My wounds aren't that bad, and I'm the one with the experience and the gun," Sam insisted. "Better if I'm the last one over here than you, Jonah." Jonah looked skeptical, but still came forward and prepped himself to leap from their building to the other side.
"More experience with what?" he grumbled. "Hunting?"
"Why do I get the feeling you boys don't shoot down ducks?" Okay, so maybe Jonah wasn't as oblivious as Sam had been thinking. "We've had experience with this, okay?" Sam admitted, casting Dean an acknowledging look for admitting that much. Dean just shrugged. Sam couldn't see Castiel anymore, and assumed Dean had forced the angel to sit down. Without asking any more questions, Jonah made him jump. He was bigger than Castiel, but Dean managed to steady Jonah fairly easily too.
"Okay, Sammy."
Dean immediately turned his back to the doorway, ready to catch Sam.
"Hurry on up so we can keep moving."
Sam smirked to himself. That was Dean code for, "Be careful, little brother." Sam was confident he could make the jump, but he was larger than all of them. He ended up miscalculating his leap, and rather than landing in Dean's arms, or jumping short so Dean would have to haul his ass up from falling the other side, Sam plowed right into Dean and knocked over the both of them to the floor.
"God damn it!"
Dean groaned from beneath Sam when they stopped rolling.
"No offense, Cass."
"None taken, Dean."
"How much weight do you weigh, Jumbo? A half ton?"
"Sorry," Sam croaked. Landing like that hadn't exactly helped his sore arm and neck. He rolled off Dean and took a moment to catch his breath. He could see Castiel leaning back against the wall beside the doorway they had all leapt through, looking as small and human as ever. Jonah was staring at the bed in the room that had the mannequin Dean mentioned. It was kind of creepy, just laying there on the bed like it was sleeping.
"Don't suppose that map snagged shows much of this building?"
Dean asked, already up on his feet, reaching a hand down to help hoist Sam up too. Sam cringed a little when Dean pulled him up. "Just the first door hallway before it cuts off," Sam said. "The hallway outside this room. There are a few other apartments, but I'm not sure what else." Sam wanted to sit back down, but they didn't have the time. He pulled the map out again to study it.
"You okay, Cass?"
Dean moved over to the angel to help him up as well. "I am much better, thank you," Castiel replied, though Sam wondered how much that was true. Even Castiel's voice shook a little when he spoke. Seizing like that wouldn't be an easy thing to recover from that. I can see where the stairwell is in this building," Sam said, "but that's about it. We should head our way there, make our way down."
"And then what?"
Dean huffed.
"Do we actually have a destination in mind? Stay away from monsters, find Lilith, whatever. But do we actually know where we should even look? Lilith could be anywhere!"
Sam frowned at Dean over the top of the map. Of course he knew all that too, but what else could they do other than keep moving? A sudden clicking noise alerted Sam to his right, where Jonah had moved to the fireplace. What did you find there, Jonah? Sam decided to avoid Dean's questions for now, since he didn't have an answer either. Jonah's hand was moving slowly atop the mantel. Sam couldn't see what was there until Dean flashed the light on rows and rows of bottles. Jonah jumped, as if he hadn't heard Sam, as if maybe he hadn't forgotten he was alone until Dean illuminated everything. It's all liquor, Jonah said heartily. Oh my god, get a kegger or we've got a massive frat party here! What?
That's what those are?
Dean exclaimed, heading over to the mantel to join Josh.
Damn, that's some collection. Who keeps liquor on a mantel instead of behind a bar or a cabinet?
The light of the flashlight lit up more of that side of the room as Dean went over there, peering at the many bottles that looked mostly full. Jonah seemed stricken, bothered by the bottles, but Sam's attention was drawn more immediately to the wall above the mantel. Dean? Sam said, and began moving slowly toward them.
What, Sammy?
Dean asked without looking back. Dean, Sam said with a touch of annoyance. Dean could really be one track sometimes. Look. Sam reached his brother, grabbed onto Dean's hand that was holding the flashlight, and pointed up to the light in the wall. There was a message, and sloppy handwriting, in blood.
Holy shit!
Dean gasped as he steadied the light. Squinting in the dark, Sam strained to read what it said. The bottom of the bottle is the bottom of the pit, he began. Run, run, you can't escape it. The subtle reminder that there was no way out of this town made Sam shudder. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Dean set the bottle he had standing back on top of the mantel.
Oh, what are you against alcoholism?
He snarked. Right. Maybe. But I doubt the town would be so blunt about it. Or about anything. It must be some kind of clue. Bottom of the pit, Sam repeated.
Hell? Okay, let's just get out of here, okay?
Said Jonah, sounding strange and especially anxious for some reason. Castiel joined him by the fireplace. His expression was severe as he grabbed Dean by the arm.
The locket, Dean. We must try to open it.
Sam had almost forgotten. He assumed the locket was some sort of clue too. Obediently, Dean took the locket out of his pocket. A small silver thing, oval-shaped, with the words Yours Forever engraved on the back. Dean handed the flashlight back to Sam so he could pull at the edges of the locket. But it wouldn't budge. Dean gave the locket to the angel, but Castiel couldn't open it either. They didn't have anything that could properly pry the locket open without busting it, and Castiel seemed reluctant to ruin it, as if that would come with consequences.
We'll have to see if we can find anything along the way,
Dean said, pocketing the locket again.
Joe's right. We should get moving. If the town leaves us clues, then maybe we need to start looking for. If one doesn't make sense, maybe we need two. Maybe there's a sequence or something. Because right now, I have no idea what that message is trying to tell us.
Deep down, Sam thought it would be better if they stayed, tried to work the message out, tried harder to open the locket. But the longer they stayed in one place, the more vulnerable they were. It also made sense that the town wouldn't give them everything they needed in one clue. If all the people in this town connected somehow, then maybe all the buildings did too. Maybe each place meant to give them a small piece of the puzzle to figuring out what was going on and where Lilith was.
Come on, Cass!
Dean pulled the angel toward the door, looking at Sam so imploringly. What more could Sam do but follow? He looked over at Jonah, still beside the mantel, still looking strange and halting as he gazed at the bottles of liquor, then back at the mannequin positioned on the bed. The town was setting a scene. Jonah might know. In fact, Sam was certain Jonah knew something he wasn't telling. Jonah?
Let's go.
The mechanic turned to Sam, moving immediately toward the door. Sam frowned. The town was trying to show them something, all right. But what? As he left the apartment, and moved carefully through the narrow hallway to find some way out, or some clue that might tell them where they needed to be. Castiel was thankful to have Dean's hand supporting him with a firm grip on his arm. The angel was still shaken from being ripped out of the other world, a place unfit for an angel, or anyone not part of Silent Hill's design. Dean's close presence soothed him, made him feel stronger, safer.
I don't know what to do here, Cass, Dean said in a soft voice. If we need clues, then we should be checking out all these rooms. Or would that be a waste of time? We gotta find Lilith, but these monsters...
We might wander here forever if we cannot find where that seal is meant to be broken, Castiel said.
I figured you'd say that.
Dean grinned. Then, he was pulling Castiel to the nearest door. It was locked. Dean kicked at it, but Castiel stopped him from kicking again. The town will show us a way. If a door was locked or broken, then either there is nothing here, or we will be given a key. Well, Castiel, part-time Konami programmer. Dean looked at him skeptically.
Why would the town be so accommodating? It's trying to kill us!
That's exactly why, Sam said as he caught up to Dean and Castiel with Jonah in tow. It has to lead us toward the seal, because that's how we get closest to the worst creatures and the biggest dangers. Besides, it needs us dead to break the seal, right? The taller Winchester looked at Castiel. There were some added details to all that, but Castiel nodded anyway.
Well, great!
Dean sneered.
So where we're going to stumble upon a conveniently written combination code to get us through some secret passageway, because I'm getting real sick of wandering around!
Most of the time, it was difficult for Castiel to understand the way Dean's mind worked. He was not a typical human. I do not believe these correct passageways are a secret, Dean. We simply need to find them, he said. As usual, Dean saw Castiel a look that said the angel had clearly missed something in the translation.
Never mind, Cass,
Dean said. He looked to his brother.
We better check all these rooms for clues, or we'll never find Lilith. Might get tedious, but I don't know what else to do.
We keep talking about this Lilith, Jonah said, still looking rather haunted after their time in that apartment with the mannequin on the bed and all those full liquor bottles.
Who is she?
She may hold the key to our survival and getting out of here, Castiel explained simply, hoping to avoid further questions that they did not have time to answer. Finding her quickly would be the best. Oh. Jonah's brow was furrowed, but he didn't press for more. He seemed rather distracted. In Castiel's experience, humans were often overly curious. They wanted answers, all of the answers, right away. It was strange that Jonah let the matter drop so easily. He hadn't even asked about the seal. Peering more deeply into the man's soul, Castiel gazed on the darkness so prevalent in Jonah. It was stronger now, that dark taint, like a cloud of ash, like the very ash falling outside in the streets of Silent Hill. Jonah was not an evil man. Castiel was sure of that. But like Sam and Dean, there was more than just fear filling that man's heart with darkness. He had secrets. He had knowledge he was not sharing. But in this place, depowered as he was, Castiel could not read what it was. Stop staring at me like that! Jonah snapped at Castiel, making the angel flint at the unexpected outburst. Jonah pushed past the rest of them, moving down the hallway to kick at the next door down the line. It did not open.
Jonah, what the hell?
Dean ground out, moving to the man quickly and leaving Castiel to stand on his own. Castiel watched as Jonah struggled in Dean's firm hold, not sure what he could do to help.
Calm down, man. None of this is helping,
Dean said.
Cass is just worried about you, and with good reason, seems like. If you're going to freak out on us, what is wrong with you?
Under the utterance of Dean's sensible words, he continued to hold on Jonah from just behind, barely overpowering him. Jonah looked like he was calming. I can't stand all this at our best right now. I can't stand not owning all this no bullshit. This is a fucking nightmare. He shook Dean off, leaning forward against the door he had been kicking. We'll figure it out, Jonah. Sam approached him cautiously. We're all getting out here alive. But for that to be even possible, we need to keep our heads together. None of us is at our best right now. Castiel felt like seconding that, but doubted it would be helpful. He wasn't helpful at all in this, but how could he be helpful when all he was capable of was following Dean around? He could still hear the faint echo of his brother's voices, murmuring about him, about the danger and potential that Castiel was lost to them forever, just like the Winchesters. Lost forever.
Cass!
Dean was suddenly back at Castiel's side, taking his arm again and looking into the face of concern.
We gotta keep moving.
Yes, Castiel replied, allowing himself to be led on, not wanting to be a burden or bearer of bad news. They had to reach the seal. They had to stop Lilith. Castiel could not afford to lose focus on that. Above all else, he had to make sure that his charge made it to the end of this, even if he had to sacrifice himself in order to see that through. Jimmy was terrified that within Castiel, even without those frantic thoughts. Castiel could not protect his vessel from what they were seeing and feeling, not as he would have been able to at full strength. Jimmy knew everything Castiel knew, and was seeing it all too. In their joined mind, all Castiel could hear for James Novak was the same mantra repeating, don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me. A few doors down their path opened without problem, but there was nothing inside. There was another liquor bottle in one, two in the other, then in three, as if each time the amount was increasing, reminding Castiel of the room that he first entered, the room that seemed to be cause of Jonah's agitation. There didn't seem to be enough interest here or otherwise, or any further clues, so they decided to head for an exit and continued on to another building. There could still be other people around, after all. They did not encounter Aaron, the man Sam and Dean first met. There was no telling how many people were actually here until they found them all.
You good to walk on your own yet, Cass?
Dean asked as they worked their way down flights of stairs to the ground level. In fact, Castiel felt much better, but he was reluctant to admit that, since Dean's presence was one of the few things helping him keep his head. He could not lie to Dean, though. I am fine now, I think. You don't need me to hold me any more, he said. Dean seemed to find Castiel's words strange, like he often did, but didn't comment more than offering a somewhat comfortable look as he let Castiel go. They reached the bottom of the stairs, where a bright sign exit glared to tell them there was an immediate way out. All of them readied what weapons they could, glad to be getting out of such an enclosed building, even though being outside wasn't much better within the limits of Silent Hill. Dean took point, as was his custom, but just when he had a hand on the door, ready to push it open, Castiel felt a sudden rush of panic and called for Dean to stop. He could feel it. He could feel it coming even before the familiar sound of that awful siren called out to them from beyond that door. The other world is returning. Okay, readers, the creepiest thing just happened. But the moment I read the line, that awful siren began to call out, I started hearing the siren in my head. It's getting creepy. This fic is getting scary. Help me. One thought clanged through Dean's mind. Not again. Not again. Oh, not again. Not again. Not only had being in the other world been a lot worse for them as far as Mercer quotient, but Sam nearly had his face melted off, and Cass has been reduced to a weak, shaking mess Dean was forced to carry around for 20 minutes. This was bad. As the walls were stripped down to the burnt and dark version of Otherworld, the siren blaring loudly from outside, the situation quickly got a lot worse when Jonah suddenly took off back upstairs. Jonah, wait! Sam called after the mechanic, but Jonah was practically sprinting up the stairs. It didn't seem to be in fear, but more like urgency to get somewhere. Not just urgency to get away from whatever lay for waiting them outside. Like that not quite man with the pyramid-shaped helmet, the one that made Dean think too, the one that they had to run away from. Like that not quite man with the pyramid-shaped helmet, the one that made Dean think too vividly of blood and torn tissue and screaming souls. Dean shook the thought off. They had to keep their wits about them. Jonah could run into any number of nasties upstairs without help, so he, Sam, and Castiel hurried after Jonah's quickly fleeing form to try and stop the fool before he could get too far away.
Just hang on a second, man!
Dean yelled, hating that his voice might alert more creatures to their whereabouts. Not sure what else to do.
Where do you think you're going? We have to stay together!
He's returning to the room, Castiel said from beside Dean, not as out of breath as Dean would have expected, but certain in his deduction. The room we came in through? Why? I don't know, said Castiel, ashamed that it seemed that he could not give them a better answer. Dean hated being surrounded by such brooding martyrs.
Doesn't matter! We gotta catch up to him before he does something stupid!
They followed after Jonah all the way back up the stairs and down the long corridor toward the room they had first entered through the building. More and more of the world around them burned away and revealed a strange mechanical version of itself as they ran, becoming more bare-boned and menacing all over again. Despite being brought into the other world, Dean could not believe their luck that they did not run into any of those acid creatures this time, or anything else for that matter. When they reached the room Jonah had returned to, Dean had the most nauseating feeling that what's about to happen was going to be much worse than dealing with those previous monsters. Sam? Jonah? What are you doing? Sam started with some caution after they burst into the room. Jonah was standing near the mantel of liquor bottles, staring at the bed with the mannequin atop it. Only now, the mannequin, the whole room, was different, changed another world. Now, the mannequin looked like a corpse, fresh and gooey with melted tissue, its sinew coating the worn mattress like it was glued there, looking gaunt and disgusting. Jonah, Sam said more firmly, walking closer to the man who was just staring, his hand on the mantel, touching one of the bottles with his fingertips.
I didn't think I had too much. I hadn't. I was okay to drive. I hadn't had too much,
Jonah said in a low-toned rant.
I hadn't. But then, that truck came out of nowhere, and I didn't know how to avoid it. The boys were in the back seat.
Dee didn't know how he should be reacting to this. What exactly was Jonah confessing? What did that have to do with that corpse?
I should have stopped then. I should have stopped. I didn't need to drink them away. After losing them both like that.
Jonah. Sam tried again. Slowly, as if finally hearing Sam, Jonah turned his head to look at them, his expression hollow, haunted. Afterward, my wife, she killed herself, took a handful of pills, and just died there on the bed. I didn't find her until morning. I was just so far gone.
You said your family's waiting for you back home.
Dean stated the obvious, remembering when they first heard that Jonah had a wife and sons, just like their own father.
No one's waiting for me anymore. Jonah thrashed out of the bottles on the mantel, sweeping to the floor. I should have been the one that died, not them! He cried. It should have been me!
The clattering of glass and spilling of liquor made Dean flinch back, but at the same time, he was ready to rush up to Jonah and hold on to the other man as tightly as he could until he finally calmed down. He didn't have time for this, even if Silent Hill was set on torturing them all, and it felt wrong to rush to such grief. Dean glanced only briefly at Sam and Castiel before starting to move forward, but he didn't manage to grab onto Jonah at all before a sudden noise had him stopping in his tracks. There was an awful creaking sound, and the screech of metal against wooden floor, from the bed moving. Dean was certain in his hatred for Silent Hill when he looked over at the bed and saw the gooey, rotten corpse atop it, pulsating with life.
Dean!
Castiel called out. A strong grip from two hands, one from the angel and one from Sam, grabbed Dean by his arms and pulled him back. They got him out of the way just in time as the bed lurched up, folding grotesquely into something like a wild animal, but still a bed. The corpse attached to it was alive somehow, in some twisted way, but it was also one with the bed. Some awful creature made from Jonah's past horrors suddenly came to life. Jonah screamed at the sight, but did not move. The bed crashed into him, knocking hard against the metal. Dean could not even begin to think of how to fight this thing. It was more than just a monster. It was personal. Personal for Jonah. Maybe even the actual corpse of the guy's wife, for all they knew. But personal or not, they had to take this thing down before it tore Jonah apart. The body's bony, shredded arms were already reaching for Jonah, calling to him practically, like a goddamn siren. Dean readied his shotgun. Dean pulled a pistol. Castiel had his borrowed knife. All at once, they acted. Dean thought he aimed well, but his first shot ricocheted off the metal posts of the bed, as did Sam's, and Castiel, who had lunged forward, was only able to stab at the thing's legs before it whipped about and sent him flying across the room. The angel crumbled too human-like to the floor.
Aim for the body!
Dean shouted at Sam, as he routed around to the other side of the bed, gazing carefully to be sure he didn't accidentally hit Jonah, who remained pinned against the mantel, amidst all that broken glass. Sam could barely get around to aim at anything above the midsection, but he got in a few lucky shots, while Dean tried his best to get closer to the head. These creatures did not go down easy, and this thing they were fighting now was obviously stronger than the acid monsters. As he took shot after shot, darting back and forth to avoid the arms of the corpse or the legs of that damn bed, Dean could hear Jonah sobbing, not trying to escape his fate, but remaining willingly pinned. Castiel appeared with the knife again, pushing past Dean to get dangerously close to the head of the creature in those snaking, summoning arms. The angel leapt up and jabbed the knife to the hilt through the creature's right eye, finally getting the thing to thrash in pain, and eventually to start to still. Black, old blood, as if to prove this creature was alive and not alive, sprayed like little droplets of gore onto Castiel's face and the front of his white button-down shirt. He didn't look any more at all like the angel Dean was used to. A scream erupted from Jonah, nosing the creature was dead, and that he was still pinned by half the bed. He stared horrified at the body, molded as it was to the mattress, a great mess of torn muscle, blood, and gore. "You should have let her kill me," he said in a low whisper, closing his eyes tightly as he remained suppressed in the mantel. "You should have let her kill me." God damn, did Dean hate martyrs, deserving of retribution or not. He stalked over to Jonah, pushing around Sam, began forcing the bed creature out of the way, to free Jonah, or whether the guy wanted freedom or not.
Enough of this bullshit! This place is trying to mess with us. Get inside our heads. Don't let it. You did wrong by your family. Fine. But you're still here. Now get a hold of yourself and move your ass! We need to find a safer place until the other world passes by again. Now!
Dean grabbed Jonah and pushed him toward the door, making the man stumble over the broken glass and liquor bottles. He looked so broken himself, and Dean understood that kind of pain. He really did, but they did not have time for sympathies. Sam and Castiel came up beside Dean, neither countering him, though Sam looked like he wished he could offer a shoulder for Jonah to cry on. And Cass, damn, he looked so human, worn, and tired, and covered in blood. "Let's go." Dean led the others back down the same path he had already gone before. Slower this time, in case fresh monsters decided to rear their heads. It was eerily calm and quiet for the other world, which also worried Dean as they made their way back downstairs. Jonah was quiet too, sluggish but moving, and the others were dead silent behind him. This place really was some death of evil, striving to drive them mad before it killed them. Otherworld was still all around them, with its darkened and red surface like living embers. Dean approached that same door he had almost escaped through before, and ready for the worst. "Are we really heading out there while it's like this?" Sam asked, quietly, and close behind Dean so Jonah wouldn't hear. "What are we supposed to do with Jonah like this, Dean? He's in no condition to fight anything, and I think I'm starting to see what we have in common." he added forlornly. Dean was starting to get that too. Death, guilt, grief. Just what Dean always wanted to have in common with other people. All he could bring himself was shrug. They had to keep moving. They needed to find Lilith, find the seal, and get the hell out of there before they became permanent fixtures.
Everybody ready?
Dean asked, checking to make sure everyone had a weapon on them, even Jonah, who was clinging loosely to his bat. Dean hardly felt like everyone was ready after they had all nodded, what with Sam still burnt by acid, albeit seemingly okay, Jonah acting completely out of it, and Cass winded and sluggish, but they had made their choice. When Dean thought it was safe as it was going to get, he opened the door and checked quickly for immediate enemies. There was no way to be sure if there were creatures hidden behind that large exit door. So Dean checked as well as he could for enemies, and when he found nothing but ash, he motioned for the others to follow them. Castiel went first, then Sam, and finally Jonah. They had to move, as quickly as they could, for another building where they could regroup and set out for clues where Lilith and the seal might be. It would have been easy enough without any visible monsters. But when Dean paused before beginning their trek to make sure all of his companions were there, he saw Jonah still standing back by the door, looking defeated, like he didn't want to keep going, like he didn't care anymore what happened to him. He looked up at Dean, and his eyes were filled with a tiredness that Dean recognized only too well. Jonah would not be going with him. As that awful thought struck Dean, he saw too late there was nothing he could do. As if having come for nothing but the icy blackhead's hair, the too large man with the pyramid head was suddenly there. Right there. His long blade already half raised behind Jonah as he appeared.
No!
Dean cried out, trying to run to Jonah, but kept from that foolish task by Sam and Castiel hanging on to him for dear life and holding him back. They were pleading and screaming at him, but that awful monster, so much worse than any of the others, was already swinging. Jonah stood there, not even bothering to turn and look, simply accepting that his life was over, because that was what he wanted. But Dean wasn't really looking at Jonah as the blade swung clearly, cutting the mechanic in two grotesque halves. He could only look at the pyramid helmet, the muscled body, and the joy in which the knife like a sword was wielded.
No.
Dean! Rang out Sam and Castiel's voices, but Dean was not listening.
No.
Before I continue reading the next few chapters here, I have to have a question to you, my faithful followers, all 14 of you. Why is it that fanfics seem to be able to get Silent Hill, while the comics are just poised to start making it into just a normal slasher film, well, with the exception of that one good one Likara pointed out, or why the Silent Hill movies are just content with just making it into, well, crap, and remove all the psychological horror. Why is it that the fanfics are able to get that? I mean, seriously now, this is like the third time I've done this. People were able to get it. Not that hard. Psychological horror. All you need to do, study psychology. Boom. You got your fic. Come on, work with me on this. I can do better than this. And I don't even write horror that well. I write action and adventure stories. Continuing. Part 15. Dean! Sam shouted at his immobile brother, trying to get the Dean move, run, anything other than just staring like he was made of stone, with cries and mumbles of despondent no's that worried Sam even more than the monster before them.
Dean, we must move, now!
Castiel called as well. His hands twisted up at Dean's shirt as he tried in vain to pull Dean away from the scene and the threat of that blade. Sam hooked an arm halfway around Dean's waist and began pulling as Castiel was pulling, threatening to hoist Dean over his shoulders if he had to. That awful, not man with the pyramid-shaped helmet tilted its unseen head at them and gripped its sword a little lighter. Jonah's blood coated the blade. The mechanic left in two horrific halves on the ground, still twitching, still more or less alive. But Sam knew he could do nothing for Jonah now. He could only save Dean. Protect and save Dean, like Dean had so often saved him. Sam pulled and pulled on his brother, with Castiel trying to help. Then, just as Pyramid Head creature began to move with determination toward them, and Sam was certain he would soon cut them all down, a shotgun shell into the beast's shoulder was released, making the arm holding that large blade flinch back. Sam risked a glance behind him to see where the shot had came from, and could not believe who was standing only a few feet away from them, holding his missing missing firearm. "Aaron!" Sam called out, blinking his eyes hard to be sure he was actually seeing the polo shirt-clad young man with the dirty blonde hair that had dissed him earlier. "This way!" Aaron yelled back, firing off another shot, and motioning for Sam and the others to follow him. There was no more time for stalling. Sam used all his remaining strength to haul Dean around, push him down the street away from certain death. Finally, Dean started to listen to him, obliging and following the others as they started to run. But Dean's expression was hollow, haunted, as they took off for the nearest sanctuary. Sam noticed right away as they caught up with Darren that the guys still had their bag filled with provisions, along with Sam's own shotgun that had disappeared from the apartment complex. It disturbed Sam that Aaron had been the one to take the weapon, that it hadn't just vanished into the other world as a cruel joke. But there wasn't time to question the rescuer now. Aaron also seemed to know where he was going, leading them quickly with an apparent destination in mind. Aaron was from Silent Hill. He should know the place well enough. But Sam was still wary, maybe even more wary because of that. He knew better than to take his eyes off of Aaron as they continued on, watching for some inevitable trap. Then Sam heard the first howl. Dean, running alongside him, seized up and stumbled to a halt. Castiel stopped as well, looking for Dean's sake. The howls continued, like the cry of wolves or wild dogs. Hellhounds. Hellhounds? Hey! Buffy! We need assistance! ASAP! Sam could see panic in his brother's eyes, something so rarely seen at all in Dean Winchester. Though Sam knew Dean felt panic more often than he ever let on. This new panic was so much more intense than anything Sam had ever seen from Dean, something he could only compare with the last expressions he had seen on Dean's face when hellhounds ripped him apart all those months ago and dragged his soul to hell. Of course Dean was imagining that very scenario, and Sam couldn't blame him, having to hear those howls, being in this place that was some kind of damn suburb of hell anyway, with creatures like that Pyramid Head stalking slowly toward them, with a blade still dripping sticky with red. They had to get somewhere safe. Now! Sam wouldn't let the same horrors befall Dean again. Never again. They could hear the hellhounds getting closer, and then, as Sam grabbed Dean's arm to get him moving again, to follow after Aaron, who had stopped several yards ahead and was yelling for them to hurry. They saw the hellhounds too. Sam had never been able to see them before, not like Dean had when his time was almost up. But in Silent Hill, it was easy to see through the veil, because they were beyond it anyway. In the other world, and those awful beasts, not quite like dogs, were terrible to look at. They were like black German shepherds, but torn and bloodied, their fur matted, or maybe not even fur, and their eyes burned red. Aaron was heading right, turning the corner down the street, still yelling for them to follow. The hellhounds were to the left, 3 of them. Aaron must not have followed them, focusing on his destination. But Sam, Dean, and Castiel saw them clearly. "There's no time!" Castiel called out, so frightened, so concerned for their safety when he should be worrying about his own. "Hurry! He's still coming!" He, being the very ominous not man with the impossibly large blade who was starting to gain on them, escaping him was so more important than worrying about the hellhounds, though they had to be cautious as they raced up to catch Aaron. Sam had never seen them as Dean had seen them, but he remembered well how fast those dogs could move. "The hospital!" Castiel cried. "Oh, of course there's going to be a hospital in Silent Hill!" Looking ahead to where Aaron was already waiting for them, it gestured hurriedly. The hellhounds were hot on their heels as they rounded the corner. Sam wondered if he could actually outrun them. Dean was so pale beside him, running so fast, so determined to escape their howls and snapping jaws. Dean reached Aaron several seconds before Sam and Castiel caught up. Scrambling inside through the thankfully unlocked doorway, they hurried to shut and lock the doors behind them. The hospital entryway and waiting room was as burnt and red with streaks of blood as anywhere else in the other world, offering them nothing but momentary reprieve, and they could not find something sturdy to help bar the door. Sam glanced around quickly to see if there was anything suitable for them to use, but what he found instead was Dean, shaking and breathing heavily as he leaned back on the remnants of a front desk, looking so lost within himself that Sam had hardly recognized him. Dean? It took a moment for Dean to look up, as if he hadn't recognized his names. Sam could barely stand the intensity of the stare when Dean's eyes met his. Dean mumbled something with a gruff, too low and soft for Sam to make out. Aaron Castiel pressed against the door, in case hellhounds or something worse tried to get in, but Sam stepped away from them to approach Dean. What? He prompted. He's so damn worried that he knew his voice broke a little on the word. Dean licked his lips, ran a hand back through his hair, all of his usual nervous gestures. It's me, he said, still gruff, still low. It's supposed to be me. What are you talking about? Sam questioned, hating seeing Dean like this, hating even more that he did not understand the cause, other than the sight of Jonah being cut in half by that monster. But, as horrible as that had been, it wasn't as if Dean hadn't seen horrors like that in the past. Dean's brow furrowed further, as he bit his lip this time and ran a hand harder through his hair. That thing out there that killed Jonah, he said. It's supposed to be me, when I was in hell. Something cold, yet strangely hot at the same time, spread throughout Sam's breastbone like dry ice. He thought he heard Castiel gasp behind him. Or maybe it was a sigh like he had known the truth all along, and he immediately hoped Dean would never notice. Dean smiled at Sam, face false, bitter, and terrible. I like to use knives, he said. Bile rose up in Sam's throat. He didn't know how to respond to that. The siren outside began to wane as he stood there. Little by little, chipped away pieces of reality that had been lost to Otherworld began to paint their way back into the walls. Sam felt a pain in his chest as the siren faded, but Dean was the first to stumble. Sam watched as his brother tried vainly to cling to the desk, collapsing in moments to the floor in a shivering heap. Sam barely had time to turn to see that Aaron and Castiel were very similar, for he too felt darkness overtaking him, pulling him down until he crumbled to the dirty floor of the hospital. Now, comics, movies, take note. This is how you use Pyramid Head effectively. See, he's meant to represent punishment. He's not a hero, and he is not some sort of random mook that you can just throw in every 5 minutes just so you can make the audience go, yay, it's Silent Hill! Ugh. When will other writers, professional writers, mind you, get that? And fanfic is worse because... ... At first, Castiel was not sure what was happening. Jimmy's body was convulsing again. Of that he knew, and therefore free of Otherworld. Was something was much worse than before. Castiel was being expelled from Silent Hill. That awful realization struck the angel all at once, filling him with terror of his and Jimmy's sakes both. Before he had the chance to hang on the entire to Jimmy's form, Castiel was no longer within it. He was hovering above Jimmy's body, forced out, all of his glorious light, his true form, revealed for all to see. But just when Castiel thought he might weep that Sam and Dean might have already awakened and struck blind by the sight of him, he saw that the Winchesters, and the other man that had been with them were not there. He was in some other room now, smaller, with only Jimmy visible. Castiel had little time before the force of the town would drive him away fully. He could see that Jimmy was already coming around, the man shaking stilling as he blinked in awareness, shielding himself from Castiel's light, though of course looking upon Castiel would not harm the salesman. Castiel, wait, you mean the human body Castiel took upon was a salesman? I did not know that. Castiel could see how terrified Jimmy was to be alone, so he asked this quickly back. Do you send me back? He said, his voice not a normal voice anymore, but something that shook the walls. Frantically, Jimmy nodded, desperate to have what little protection Castiel was still able to provide him in this place. Please! Jimmy yelled over the sheer din of Castiel's presence. Then, as difficult it was to form back together with Jimmy, Castiel took him. The evil place be damned. He knew, however, even as he was settling back into Jimmy's skin, that he would not be able to do this again. The next time the overworld claimed and released him, he would be expelled from Jimmy's body for good, leaving the man and Castiel's charges to their fates. As quickly as he was able, still adjusting, still remembering how his human body needed to breathe and take a moment to collect itself, Castiel took closer stock of his surroundings. He believed he was still in the hospital, judging by the decor and furniture. He was in some kind of patient checkup room. It was dark, dusty, and abandoned looking, like the rest of the town. Castiel checked his body, patted the now dirty and bloody button-down slacks, tucked into the back of his pants. He still had the borrowed knife from Dean. At least he was not entirely helpless. Standing, feeling the strain in Jimmy's body so much more pronounced than before, he willed himself to stay conscious, alert, and prepared to head out into the hallway to seek out his companions. Then Castiel saw the message. The bloody, blood-written message across the wall. It was almost identical to the one that they had found in the room with liquor bottles and Jonah's parody dead wife. But the message was different. Castiel suppressed a human shiver. It was not so much a riddle this time. After reading the message over, he was certain he understood now that the people trapped in Silent Hill had in common, and he knew assuredly that Dean would not be pleased to hear the answer. For now, all he could do was hope to find the others quickly. It would not be far along, so Castiel dared to open the door of the room he found himself in, and peered into the dark, long corridor beyond. It was so dark. Once the angel would have been able to see regardless, and he hoped that maybe reconnecting with Jimmy, he might have had back a burst of his old power. But no such luck. If anything, he was wearier now, more human. Castiel felt fear within him stronger than Jimmy's alone. He did not like being alone like this, cut off from his brothers, and separated from Dean and the others. He held Dean's knife tightly in his hand as he ventured out. Stillness was misleading, Castiel knew. He wasn't sure which direction to go, so he ventured toward the nearest light, drawn to it, even though he knew the creatures of this place would no doubt be drawn to the light as well. Halfway to the light from an open doorway, maybe into a waiting room, Castiel heard sounds of rustling, like stacks of papers and files being tossed to the floor. Perhaps the room was an office, and one of those monsters was raging inside it. Was it more Castiel's duty to slay the creatures, or avoid it while seeking out his charges? He wasn't sure. He chose to continue on, weighing his options as he went, not oblivious to how he needed to clutch the wall as he went, or fear crumbling. The noises from the room grew louder. Castiel almost thought to call out for Dean or Sam. Maybe it was them. But then he heard the lower murmurs of a voice that was distinctly female. Could be Lilith, the angel wondered. What would he do if it was? His knife would do little against her. Still, Castiel could not waver. He was an angel of the Lord, and he needed to be strong if he was to accomplish anything productive in his current state. He could not slink back into the darkness and wait for rescue. As he closer and closer to the room, Castiel felt the sweat from his palms, making his grip on the handle of the blade loosen. He could hear Jimmy's heartbeat, as if it were up in his ears instead of chest. The rustling and murmuring continued. Castiel ready for an attack. He danced around the corner to enter the lit room, knife ready and defensive. There was a flash of blonde hair, a small but not childlike figure, then something hard like metal striking the side of the door of Castiel's head, and his vision filled with spots as fast as a light. He fell heavily to the floor. Oh shit. The female voice at Castiel was fairly certain now was not Lilith or any host she inhabited. Are you okay? And boom, Buffy appears. I'm kidding. But we will pause there, but don't worry, dear viewers. Tomorrow, Sunday, we are going to end this sucker. Because I bet you, as well as I, are really curious as how this dang thing ends. What type of multiple endings we're going to see, and just where this all turns up. Because heavens knows, you have gotten me a hooked, little missy. Great job!